The snow fell in thick sheets on Christmas Eve, blanketing the city in white silence. Warren Bishop stood at the mouth of a dark alley between two office buildings, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. His expensive wool coat did little to keep out the bitter cold, but that wasn't what made him stop in his tracks. It was the crying. Not just any crying, but the desperate, terrified sobs of a child trying to stay quiet. Warren's heart pounded as he stepped closer to the sound, his leather shoes crunching on the fresh snow. The alley was narrow, lined with dumpsters and fire escapes, the kind of place where horrible things happened in cities like this. Then he saw them. Two small figures huddled against the brick wall, partially hidden behind a dumpster. The larger one, a little girl, had her arms wrapped around a smaller child, a boy. Their clothes were thin and inadequate for the weather. The girl's jacket was torn at the sleeve. The boy's shoes had holes in them. Both were shaking violently from the cold. Warren took another step forward, and the girl's head snapped up. Her eyes, wide with terror, locked onto his. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, her dark hair matted against her face, tear tracks frozen on her cheeks. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Please don't hurt us." The words hit Warren like a physical blow. This child, this innocent little girl, was so afraid that her first instinct upon seeing an adult was to beg for mercy. What had happened to her? What had she experienced that made her assume the worst from every stranger? Warren raised his hands slowly, trying to appear non-threatening. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently. "I promise. Are you okay? Do you need help?" The girl pulled her brother closer, her body positioned protectively in front of his. "We're fine," she lied, her teeth chattering. "Just leave us alone." But Warren could see they were anything but fine. The boy's lips were turning blue. The girl's fingers, clutching her brother, were red and raw from the cold. If they stayed out here much longer, they could die from exposure. It was Christmas Eve, one of the coldest nights of the year, and these two children were alone in an alley with nowhere to go. "My name is Warren," he said, crouching down to their level but keeping his distance. "What are your names?" The girl hesitated, then whispered, "Tessa. This is Corey." "Hi, Tessa." "Hi, Corey." Warren kept his voice calm and steady. "Listen, it's really cold out here. I live just around the corner. Would you like to come inside where it's warm? I can make you some hot chocolate and get you some blankets." Tessa's eyes filled with fresh tears. "You promise you won't hurt us?" "I promise," Warren said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. "I just want to help." The little boy Corey started crying harder. "I'm so cold, Tessa," he whimpered. "My feet hurt." Tessa looked torn, her protective instincts warring with the reality of their situation. Warren could see the exact moment she made her decision. She nodded slowly, then helped her brother stand up. Both children swayed on their feet, weak from cold and probably hunger. Warren immediately took off his coat and wrapped it around both of them. "Come on," he said softly. "Let's get you somewhere safe." As they walked out of the alley, Warren's mind raced. Who were these children? Where were their parents? Why were they alone on Christmas Eve? And most importantly, what had happened to make them so terrified of adults? He didn't know it then, but the answers to those questions would change his life forever. This chance encounter in a snowy alley would become the most important moment of his entire existence. Sometimes, the universe puts people exactly where they need to be, exactly when they need to be there. For Warren Bishop, a man who had spent years building walls around his heart, that moment was now. Have you ever wondered what you would do if you found children in danger? Would you walk away or would you step forward into the unknown? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about the power of kindness and second chances. Your support helps us share these important tales. Warren's penthouse was only 2 blocks away, but the walk felt like miles. Tessa and Corey stumbled beside him, their small bodies weak and shaking. Warren wanted to carry them, but he was afraid sudden movements would scare them more. Instead, he walked slowly, keeping his coat wrapped around their shoulders. The doorman, Gilbert, looked startled when Warren entered the building with 2 disheveled children, but to his credit, he didn't ask questions. "Good evening, Mr. Bishop," he said professionally. "Gilbert, could you please call Dr. Anderson? Tell her I need her at my place right away. It's an emergency." "Right away, sir." The elevator ride to the top floor felt endless. Warren glanced down at the children. Corey had his face buried against Tessa's side, still crying softly. Tessa stared straight ahead, her jaw set in determination, trying to be brave for her little brother. "Almost there," Warren said gently. "Just a few more minutes and you'll be warm." When the elevator doors opened directly into Warren's penthouse, both children's eyes widened. The space was enormous, All clean lines and modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows showing the snowy city below. Warren had designed it to be impressive, but now, seeing it through the children's eyes, it felt cold and impersonal. "This is where you live?" Tessa whispered. "Yes." "Come on, let's get you warmed up." Warren led them to the guest bathroom. "There are clean towels here. Why don't you both warm up with a shower? I'll find you some dry clothes." Tessa nodded but didn't move. Warren realized she was still afraid to be separated from her brother. "You can both stay together," he said quickly. "I'll leave the clothes right outside the door and wait in the living room. Take as long as you need." He rummaged through his closet, finding the smallest clothes he owned, a couple of old t-shirts and some sweatpants that would be huge on the children, but at least they'd be clean and warm. He left them outside the bathroom door, then went to his kitchen. Warren Bishop was worth several $1,000,000. He owned 3 companies and had investments across multiple sectors. He could buy almost anything he wanted. But standing in his state-of-the-art kitchen, he realized he had no idea how to make hot chocolate from scratch. He'd never needed to before. Fortunately, he found some packets in the back of a cabinet, probably left by a housekeeper. He heated milk on the stove, trying to remember if that's what you were supposed to do. His hands shook slightly as he poured it into mugs. The gravity of the situation was settling on him. These weren't just any children. They were terrified, alone, and depending on him. 20 minutes later, Tessa and Corey emerged from the bathroom. They looked slightly better, their faces clean, their hair damp. Warren's t-shirts hung on them like dresses. Corey's eyes were red from crying, but he'd stopped shaking. "Feel better?" Warren asked. Tessa nodded. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For the clothes and the shower." "Of course. Come sit down." Warren gestured to the couch, where he'd piled every blanket he could find. "I made hot chocolate." The children sat tentatively on the edge of the couch, accepting the mugs with careful hands. Warren watched as they drank, seeing some color return to their faces. Corey drained his entire mug in seconds, then looked up hopefully. "Would you like more?" Warren asked. Corey nodded. "Yes, please." As Warren refilled the mug, there was a knock at the door. Dr. Anderson, his personal physician, had arrived. She was a kind woman in her 50s who had been Warren's doctor for years. "Thank you for coming so quickly," Warren said, letting her in. Dr. Anderson took one look at the children and immediately switched into professional mode. "Hello there," she said warmly. "I'm Dr. Anderson. I just want to make sure you're both healthy. Is that okay?" Tessa looked at Warren, seeking permission. He nodded encouragingly. "It's okay. Dr. Anderson is very nice. She just wants to help." The doctor examined both children thoroughly. Aside from mild frostbite on their fingers and toes, some malnutrition and exhaustion, they were relatively healthy. She gave Warren instructions for care, including what foods to feed them gradually and how to treat the frostbite. "They need rest, proper meals and warmth," Dr. Anderson said privately. "But Warren, you need to call Child Protective Services. These children need proper care." "I know," Warren said. "But not tonight. It's Christmas Eve. Can't they have one night of peace first?" Dr. Anderson studied his face, then nodded. "First thing tomorrow then. But Warren, be careful. Getting attached to a situation you can't control will only hurt more." After she left, Warren returned to find both children had curled up on the couch under the blankets, their eyes drooping. But Tessa was fighting sleep, clearly trying to stay alert. "Tessa," Warren said gently, sitting in a chair across from them. "You're safe here. I need you to trust me on that. But I also need to understand what's happening. Where are your parents?" Tessa's eyes filled with tears. "Our mom died when Corey was born. We never knew our dad." Warren's chest tightened. "I'm so sorry. Who have you been living with?" "Our grandma," Tessa said, her voice breaking. "But she got sick a month ago. Real sick. She went to the hospital and they said she had cancer. She died 3 days ago." "Oh, sweetheart." Warren's heart ached for them. "Why didn't you tell the hospital? They could have helped you." "Grandma said that if anything happened to her, they'd split us up," Tessa explained, tears streaming down her face. "She said we'd go into the system and they'd send us to different homes because nobody wants 2 kids together. I promised her I'd take care of Corey no matter what. I promised I wouldn't let them separate us." Warren understood then. This little girl had been carrying an impossible burden. She'd been trying to take care of herself and her brother alone, without any resources, without any help. No wonder she was terrified. "Have you been on the streets for 3 days?" Tessa nodded. "We stayed in Grandma's apartment the first night, but the landlord came and said we had to leave. We didn't have anywhere else to go. I took some food from the apartment, but it ran out yesterday. We've been trying to find places to stay warm, but everywhere kept kicking us out. You were in that alley when I found you. We were trying to hide until morning. Then I was going to figure out what to do next." Tessa's voice was so tired, so defeated. "But I didn't know what. I'm only 8. I don't know how to take care of us." Warren leaned forward. "Listen to me, Tessa. You are the bravest person I've ever met. What you did, trying to protect your brother, that takes incredible courage. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. I'm going to help you." "But you're a stranger," Tessa said. "Why would you help us?" It was a fair question. Warren looked at these two children, remembering his own painful childhood, his own time in the system. "Because somebody should have helped me when I was your age," he said honestly. "And they didn't. So now I help when I can." "What if they try to separate us?" Tessa's biggest fear surfaced again. "I won't let that happen," Warren said, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. "Tomorrow I'm going to call some people. We're going to figure this out the right way. But I promise you, I will do everything in my power to keep you together." "You promise?" Tessa's voice was so small, so hopeful. "I promise." For the first time since Warren had found them, Tessa's shoulders relaxed. She leaned back against the couch, pulling Corey closer. "Okay," she whispered. "Thank you." "You're welcome. Now you both need to sleep. That bedroom right there is yours for tonight. There's a big bed and I'll leave a light on in the hallway." Tessa looked uncertain. "Where will you sleep?" "I'll be right out here on this couch. If you need anything at all, you just call out. I'll hear you." "Okay." Warren helped them to the bedroom, tucking them under the thick comforter. Corey was already asleep, but Tessa looked up at Warren one more time. "Mr. Warren?" "Yes." "This is the nicest thing anyone's ever done for us." Warren's throat tightened. "Get some rest, sweetheart. Tomorrow is a new day." He closed the door partway and returned to the living room. The penthouse felt different now, less empty. Warren sat on the couch, staring out at the snowy city, his mind racing with plans and logistics. He'd built a fortune from nothing. He'd navigated complex business deals and high-stakes negotiations. But nothing had ever felt as important as what he was about to do. 2 children were depending on him, trusting him with their safety and their future. Warren pulled out his phone and dialed his lawyer's number. It went to voicemail as expected on Christmas Eve. "Thomas, it's Warren. I need you to call me back as soon as possible. It's urgent. I need to know everything about emergency custody, foster care, and adoption law. Everything. Call me tonight if you can." Then he dialed another number. His assistant, Patricia. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Mr. Bishop? Is everything all right?" "Patricia, I'm sorry to bother you on Christmas Eve. But I need you to do something for me first thing tomorrow morning. I need you to clear my schedule for the next 2 weeks. Cancel everything." "Everything?" Patricia sounded shocked. Warren never canceled meetings. "Everything. Something's come up. Something important." "Of course, sir. Is there anything else you need?" "Yes. I need you to research child psychologists and social workers in the city. I need names of the best ones. People who actually care about kids, not just bureaucrats. Can you do that?" "Absolutely. I'll have a list for you by noon tomorrow." "Thank you, Patricia. And Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas, Mr. Bishop." Warren hung up and leaned back against the couch. Through the bedroom door, he could hear Corey's soft snoring and Tessa's quiet breathing. They were safe tonight. Warm, fed, and safe. But tomorrow would bring new challenges. The system would get involved. There would be questions, investigations, procedures. Warren knew the system. He'd been through it himself as a child after his parents died in a car accident. He'd been shuffled from foster home to foster home, never staying anywhere long enough to feel safe, never finding a place to belong. He wouldn't let that happen to Tessa and Corey. He wouldn't. Warren stood and walked to the window, watching the snow continue to fall. Christmas Eve had always been a lonely time for him. He'd built his wealth and success, but he'd never built a family. He'd never let anyone close enough. The walls he'd constructed around his heart had kept him safe but also kept him isolated. Now 2 children had stumbled into his life, literally and figuratively. And somehow in the span of a few hours they'd started to crack those walls. Warren thought about Tessa's terrified face in the alley, the way she'd begged him not to hurt them. What kind of world had these children experienced that made them so afraid? What had they seen, what had they endured? He made another silent promise to himself. Whatever it took, however long it took, he would make sure Tessa and Corey knew safety. Real safety. The kind that came from stability and love, not just temporary shelter. Tomorrow he would start the process. He would navigate the legal system, work with social services, do everything right. But tonight, on Christmas Eve, 2 children would sleep soundly for the first time in days. And that was enough. Warren checked on them one more time before settling onto the couch. Tessa had rolled closer to Corey in her sleep, her arm protectively around her brother even in unconsciousness. The sight made Warren's chest ache with an emotion he couldn't quite name. As he closed his eyes, Warren realized something had shifted inside him. The emptiness that had defined his life for so long had been replaced by something else. Purpose. Hope. The possibility of something more. He didn't know how this would end. He didn't know if the system would let him help these children the way he wanted to. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would try. He would fight. Because sometimes the universe gives you a second chance. And Warren Bishop wasn't going to waste his. Warren woke early on Christmas morning to find Corey standing beside the couch, staring at him with wide, uncertain eyes. The little boy was clutching a stuffed animal Warren didn't remember being there before. He must have had it in his pocket. "Good morning," Warren said softly, sitting up. "Did you sleep okay?" Corey nodded but didn't speak. His eyes darted toward the kitchen and Warren understood. "Are you hungry?" Another nod. "Let's see what we can make for breakfast." Warren's kitchen was stocked with expensive ingredients but nothing particularly child-friendly. He found eggs, bread, and some jam. Simple, but it would do. As he cooked scrambled eggs and toast, Corey climbed onto one of the bar stools, watching every move. "Do you like eggs?" Warren asked. "Yes, sir," Corey whispered. "You don't have to call me sir. Warren is fine. Tessa says we should be polite to people who help us." Warren's heart clenched. "Tessa is very smart. But you can be polite and still just call me Warren." Tessa emerged from the bedroom a few minutes later, her hair messy, wearing Warren's oversized t-shirt. She looked young and vulnerable in the morning light, not at all like the fierce protector from last night. "Morning," she said cautiously. "Good morning. I'm making breakfast. Have a seat." Warren served them both, watching as they ate slowly at first, then faster as their hunger took over. He made more eggs, more toast, and they accepted each serving with grateful thanks. It struck him how polite they were despite their circumstances. Their grandmother had raised them well. After breakfast, Warren's phone rang. It was Thomas, his lawyer, calling back. "Give me just a minute," Warren told the children, stepping into his home office. "Warren, what's going on?" Thomas asked. "Your message sounded urgent." Warren explained the situation as concisely as possible. Thomas listened without interrupting, then sighed. "This is complicated, Warren. You can't just take in 2 children without proper channels. You could be accused of kidnapping." "I know. That's why I need your help." "What do I do?" "First, you need to contact Child Protective Services immediately. Explain the situation. They'll send a caseworker to assess everything. Then, if you're serious about this, you can apply for emergency foster care. It's a process, but given your resources and clean record, it's possible." "How long does it take?" "Emergency foster placement can happen within days if the caseworker approves and there's no other family." "But Warren, are you sure about this? Taking in 2 children is a massive responsibility. Your entire life will change." Warren thought about Tessa's plea in the alley, about Corey's cold blue lips, about the promise he'd made. "I'm sure." "All right. I'll draw up the necessary paperwork. But you need to call CPS today. Christmas or not, this needs to be done properly." After hanging up, Warren returned to the living room. Tessa was showing Corey something on the television, but both turned when Warren entered. "I just talked to my lawyer," Warren said, sitting down across from them. "We need to do this the right way. That means calling Child Protective Services and explaining what happened." Tessa's face went pale. "They'll take us away." "Maybe not. My lawyer says I can apply to be your emergency foster parent. If they approve me, you can stay here while we figure out permanent arrangements." "And if they don't approve you?" Tessa's voice shook. "Then we keep trying. Look, I know you're scared. But running away and hiding isn't the answer. Your grandmother wanted you safe, right? She wanted you taken care of?" Tessa nodded slowly. "Then let's do this the right way. Let's get you into a safe place legally so nobody can question it or take you away suddenly. I have resources, Tessa. I can fight for you. But I can only do that if we work within the system." Tessa looked at her brother, then back at Warren. "You really want to keep us?" "Yes, I do." "What? You don't even know us." Warren struggled to articulate his feelings. "Sometimes you just know when something is right. This is right. You need help and I can provide it. Maybe that's all the reason I need." Tessa considered this, then nodded. "Okay. We'll do it your way. Warren made the call. The CPS emergency line was surprisingly active even on Christmas. He explained the situation to the operator, who took his information and said a caseworker would be dispatched within a few hours. What do we do until then? Tessa asked. Warren looked around his sterile penthouse. Well, it's Christmas. We should probably do something Christmas-related. We don't have presents or a tree, Corey said quietly. Then let's fix that. Warren took them shopping. It was awkward at first because the children had no proper clothes, but he found a department store that was open and bought them each a complete outfit. Tessa chose a bright red sweater and jeans. Corey picked a blue shirt with a cartoon character on it. In the dressing room while they changed, Warren bought more clothes, enough for a week at least. Then they went to a store that was selling discounted Christmas trees. Warren let the children pick one, a small pine that would fit in his living room. They bought ornaments, lights, and a star for the top. Corey's eyes lit up when he saw the decorations, the first real smile Warren had seen from him. Back at the penthouse they decorated together. Warren had never bothered with a Christmas tree before. He'd always viewed the holiday as just another day. But now, watching Tessa carefully hang ornaments and Corey giggle as he wrapped lights around the lower branches, Warren understood what he'd been missing. This was what Christmas was supposed to be. Not the expensive gifts or fancy parties he'd been invited to over the years. This simple joy, this togetherness. It's beautiful, Tessa said when they finished. Warren agreed. The tree wasn't perfect. The ornament placement was haphazard, and the lights were tangled in some places. But it was theirs, created together, and that made it special. The doorbell rang at 2 in the afternoon. Warren's stomach tightened. The caseworker had arrived. He opened the door to find a woman in her early 30s standing in the hallway. She was African American, wearing a professional green dress and carrying a large bag. Her expression was serious but not unkind. Mr. Bishop? I'm Brianna Mitchell from Child Protective Services. Please come in. Warren stepped aside. Brianna entered, her eyes immediately taking in everything. The penthouse, the Christmas tree, the children sitting nervously on the couch. Her gaze lingered on Tessa and Corey, and Warren saw her expression soften slightly. Hello, she said gently to them. I'm Brianna. I'm here to help. Tessa stood up, positioning herself slightly in front of Corey. Are you going to take us away? That depends on a lot of factors, Brianna said honestly. But I'm not here to hurt you or scare you. I just need to understand what's happening and make sure you're safe. Can you tell me your names? I'm Tessa. This is my brother Corey. Brianna smiled warmly. It's nice to meet you both. Mr. Bishop, could I speak with you privately first? Warren led her to his office. Brianna closed the door and turned to face him, her professional mask back in place. Tell me everything. How did you meet these children? Warren explained, finding them in the alley, bringing them home, calling Dr. Anderson, everything. Brianna listened carefully, taking notes. And you want to keep them here? She asked when he finished. Yes. I want to apply for emergency foster care. Brianna studied him. Mr. Bishop, I've seen a lot in this job. People who seem well-meaning but have ulterior motives. Rich people who think they can buy their way into anything, including children's lives. What makes you different? Warren met her gaze steadily. I grew up in foster care. After my parents died, I was bounced from home to home. Nobody wanted me permanently. I know what that feels like, the uncertainty, the fear of being moved again. I won't let Tessa and Corey go through that if I can help it. Something shifted in Brianna's expression. Understanding, maybe. You're a foster kid. Was. A long time ago. That explains some things. She consulted her notes. I need to interview the children separately, inspect your home, run background checks. This is going to take time. How much time? For emergency placement? If everything checks out, maybe 48 hours. But Mr. Bishop, I need you to understand something. Even if I approve emergency foster care, that's temporary. Long-term placement requires much more. Classes, home studies, psychological evaluations. It's a process that takes months. I understand. I'm ready for that. Brianna nodded. All right. Let me talk to the children. She interviewed Tessa first, then Corey. Warren stayed in his office, anxious, wondering what they were saying, how Brianna was interpreting everything. After an hour, Brianna inspected the guest room where the children had slept, the bathroom, the kitchen. She took more notes, asked more questions. Finally, she sat down with Warren again. Here's my assessment. The children are clearly bonded to you already, which is unusual but not necessarily bad. They feel safe here, which is the most important thing. Your home is more than adequate. You have the financial resources to provide for them. And your background check came back clean. Warren's hope rose. So you'll approve emergency placement? I'm going to recommend it, yes. But there are conditions. You need to start foster parent training immediately after Christmas. You need to bring them in for regular checkups with me. And you need to understand that if any family members come forward to claim them, they get priority. They said their grandmother was their only family. Sometimes people come out of the woodwork when they hear children might inherit something or when there's money involved, Brianna warned. Just be prepared. I will be. Brianna stood. I'll file the paperwork tonight. You should have official approval by the day after tomorrow. In the meantime, the children can stay with you under my supervision. I'll be checking in frequently. Thank you, Warren said sincerely. Thank you for giving us a chance. Brianna's expression softened again. You seem genuine, Mr. Bishop. And those kids need someone genuine. Don't prove me wrong. I won't. After Brianna left, Warren returned to the living room. Both children looked terrified, waiting for the verdict. She said yes, Warren told them. You can stay. The relief on their faces was profound. Tessa started crying, not from fear this time but from overwhelming emotion. Corey ran to Warren and hugged his legs tightly. Thank you, Tessa sobbed. Thank you so much. Warren knelt down and opened his arms. Tessa joined the hug, and for a moment the three of them stayed like that, holding on to each other, holding on to hope. We're going to figure this out together, Warren promised. I don't know exactly how yet, but we will. That evening they ordered pizza and watched Christmas movies. Warren sat between the children on the couch, feeling their warmth against his sides. Corey fell asleep halfway through the second movie, his head on Warren's lap. Tessa lasted a bit longer but eventually dozed off too. Warren looked at their peaceful faces, so different from the terrified children he'd found in the alley. In just 24 hours they'd begun to trust him. That trust was precious and fragile. He would do everything in his power to honor it. His phone buzzed. A text from Brianna, paperwork filed. Official approval should come through tomorrow afternoon. Merry Christmas, Mr. Bishop. You did a good thing today. Warren smiled and typed back, thank you for believing in us. He carried Corey to bed first, then came back for Tessa. She woke slightly as he lifted her. Warren, she murmured sleepily. Yes. Is this real? Are we really going to stay? Yes, sweetheart. This is real. Okay. Good. She closed her eyes again, trusting him completely. Warren tucked them both into bed and stood in the doorway watching them sleep. His entire life had changed in a single day. The solitary existence he'd built, the walls he'd maintained, they were crumbling. And strangely he didn't mind. For the first time in longer than he could remember, Warren Bishop felt like he had a purpose beyond making money or closing deals. He had people to care for, people who needed him. And maybe, just maybe, he needed them too. Christmas had given him an unexpected gift. Not wrapped in paper or tied with a bow, but infinitely more valuable. The gift of connection. Of family. Warren went to his own room, exhausted but content. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. There would be paperwork and procedures and 1,000 details to manage. But tonight he would rest, knowing he'd done the right thing. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is open your heart when you've spent years keeping it closed. Warren had taken that first step. Now he just needed to keep walking forward, one day at a time, building something beautiful from the broken pieces of the past. The official approval came through the next afternoon, just as Brianna had predicted. Warren was now Tessa and Corey's emergency foster parent, a temporary arrangement that would last while permanent solutions were explored. The weight of that responsibility settled on his shoulders, but instead of feeling burdened, Warren felt energized. He'd spent his entire adult life focused solely on business, on accumulating wealth and success. Now he had something more important to focus on: 2 children who needed stability and love. The first few days were an adjustment for everyone. Warren had to learn the basics of parenting, things he'd never had to think about before. What time should children go to bed? What did they eat for breakfast? How much television was too much? Tessa helped guide him, mature beyond her years. Grandma always made us go to bed at 8, she told him. And she said vegetables were important, even if we didn't like them. Warren followed her grandmother's rules, figuring they were a good foundation. He learned to cook simple meals, or at least heat up healthy prepared foods. He discovered that Corey loved mac and cheese but hated broccoli. Tessa would eat almost anything but was picky about textures. Brianna visited every other day, checking on their progress. Each time, Warren saw her assessment of him shift slightly. She'd been skeptical at first, understandably. But as she watched him patiently help Corey with a puzzle or listen to Tessa read a story, Her approval grew. "You're doing well," she told him after one visit. "The children are settling in nicely." "Thank you. I'm trying." "That's what matters." Brianna smiled. "Most people don't realize how hard this is until they're in it. The fact that you're still committed says a lot." Warren wanted to tell her it wasn't hard at all, that having Tessa and Corey in his life felt natural and right. But he understood what she meant. The logistics were challenging, the responsibility was heavy. But the reward, seeing the children laugh and play, made it all worthwhile. One evening, about a week after Christmas, Warren was putting away groceries when he heard Tessa and Corey talking in the living room. Their voices were low, but Warren caught fragments of conversation. "Do you think he'll keep us?" Corey asked. "I don't know. He seems nice, but Grandma always said nice people don't always stay nice. But he gave us a home. And food. And he's teaching me to read better." "I know. But people can change their minds. What if he gets tired of us?" Warren's heart broke. Despite everything he'd done, the children still didn't fully trust that this was permanent. And why would they? They'd lost their mother, their grandmother, their home. Their entire world had been uncertainty and loss. He walked into the living room. Both children looked up, startled, worried they'd been overheard. "Can we talk?" Warren asked gently. They nodded, and he sat down on the floor in front of the couch where they were sitting. "I heard what you were saying. And I understand why you're worried. You've been through so much and you've learned not to trust that good things last. But I need you to hear this." Warren looked at both of them seriously. "I'm not going to change my mind about you. I'm not going to get tired of you. You're staying here for as long as it takes to figure out what's best for you permanently. And if I have any say in it, that means forever." "Forever?" Corey's eyes widened. "Forever. I know that's hard to believe right now. But I'm going to prove it to you every single day. When I make a promise, I keep it. And I promise you both you're safe here." Tessa's eyes filled with tears. "What if something happens to you? Everyone we love goes away." Warren understood then. It wasn't just about trusting him. It was about their fear of losing someone else. These children had learned that love meant eventual loss. "Nothing's going to happen to me," Warren said, though he knew he couldn't guarantee that. "But just in case, I've already updated my will. If anything ever did happen, I've made arrangements to ensure you'd be taken care of. You'd never be alone or unprotected." "You did that for us?" Tessa whispered. "Of course I did. You're my responsibility now. That means planning for every possibility." Corey slid off the couch and hugged Warren tightly. "I'm glad we found you in that alley." Warren hugged him back, his throat tight with emotion. "I'm glad too, buddy." That night, after the children were asleep, Warren sat in his office staring at old photographs. He kept them in a box in his desk drawer, rarely looking at them because they brought up painful memories. But tonight he needed to confront his past. There was a picture of his parents, smiling at the camera. Warren had been 7 when they died, old enough to remember them vividly. His father had been a teacher, his mother a nurse. They hadn't been wealthy, but they'd been happy. Until a drunk driver had taken them away in an instant. Warren had gone into foster care with nothing but a small suitcase of clothes. He'd been shuffled between 5 different homes over the next 11 years. Some families had been kind but overwhelmed. Others had been indifferent, seeing foster children as paychecks. None had wanted to adopt him permanently. He'd aged out of the system at 18 with nothing. No family, no support, no safety net. But he'd been determined to survive, to build something better. He'd worked multiple jobs while putting himself through community college, then university. He'd started his first business at 25, a small tech consulting firm. By 30 he'd sold it for $2 million. Every success had been motivated by that terrified 7-year-old who'd lost everything. Warren had built his fortune as armor against vulnerability, walls against pain. He'd never let anyone close because getting close meant risking loss. Until now. Looking at his parents' photograph, Warren whispered, "I think I understand now. Why you fought so hard to give me a good life. Because children deserve that. They deserve to feel safe and loved." He thought about Tessa's fierce determination to protect her brother, about Corey's sweet nature despite his trauma. These children deserved everything good the world could offer. And Warren had the resources to provide it. But more than that, he had the understanding. He knew what they were going through because he'd lived it. He could anticipate their fears, their doubts, their need for consistency and safety. Maybe that's why the universe had put him in that alley on Christmas Eve. Maybe everything he'd been through, all the pain and loneliness, had prepared him for this moment. To be exactly what Tessa and Corey needed. There was a knock on his office door. Warren quickly wiped his eyes and turned to see Tessa standing there in her pajamas. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head and came into the office looking at the photographs on his desk. Are these your parents? Yes. They look nice. They were. I lost them when I was just a little older than you are now. Tessa sat down in the chair across from his desk. What happened after? Warren told her. Not in detail but enough so she understood. He explained foster care, the instability, the fear of never belonging anywhere. Tessa listened quietly, her eyes never leaving his face. So you know, she said when he finished. You really know what it's like. Yes, I do. Did you ever find a family? Warren paused, considering his answer. Not the traditional way. But I built a life for myself. I worked hard and created success. And now, maybe I'm getting a chance to have the family I always wanted. With us. With you. Tessa smiled, the first genuine full smile he'd seen from her. I'd like that. Me too. They sat together in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Tessa said, Warren, can I ask you something? Anything. Miss Brianna said you're very rich. Why do you want us? You could have anything you want. Travel anywhere, do anything. Why would you want to take care of 2 kids? It was the most direct question she'd asked him. Warren chose his words carefully. When I was in foster care, all I wanted was someone to choose me. Not because they had to, not because they were paid to, but because they wanted to. Nobody ever did. So I grew up and I made a lot of money and I bought a lot of things. But none of it made me happy. None of it filled the empty space inside me. Do you understand what I'm saying? Tessa nodded slowly. Then I found you and Corey in that alley. And for the first time in decades, I felt something other than emptiness. I felt purpose. I felt needed. You gave me that gift, Tessa. The gift of mattering to someone. We matter to you? More than you know. Tessa stood up and walked around the desk. She hugged Warren and he held her gently, this brave little girl who'd been through so much. You matter to us too, she whispered. After Warren took her back to bed, he returned to his office. But instead of looking at the painful photographs, he took out his phone and started researching. Schools in the area. Children's activities. Summer camps. Museums with kid-friendly exhibits. His life was changing and he was going to embrace it fully. No more living in the past. No more letting old pain dictate his present. Tessa and Corey deserved a guardian who was fully present, fully committed. And that's exactly what he would be. The next morning, Brianna arrived for her regular check-in. But this time she had someone with her. A woman in her 60s, professionally dressed, with kind eyes. Mr. Bishop, this is Helen Rodriguez. She's going to be your foster care trainer. I've arranged for her to come here for your classes rather than making you attend the group sessions. Given your situation and resources, this seemed more practical. Warren shook Helen's hand. Thank you for coming. It's my pleasure, Helen said warmly. Brianna tells me you're doing wonderfully with Tessa and Corey. I'm here to help make sure you have all the tools you need. Over the next several hours, Helen walked Warren through the basics of foster parenting. She covered trauma-informed care, understanding behavioral triggers, creating stability and routine, managing difficult emotions, and much more. Warren took notes diligently, asking questions whenever something wasn't clear. Helen seemed impressed by his dedication. You're taking this very seriously, she observed. These children are depending on me. I want to do right by them. That attitude will take you far. During a break, Brianna pulled Warren aside. I have some news. We've been trying to locate any other family members as a standard procedure. We found something. Warren's stomach tightened. What? Tessa and Corey's late grandmother had a sister. She passed away 20 years ago, but she had children. I'm still tracking them down, but it appears there might be cousins or extended family. Are they going to want the children? I don't know yet. But legally, blood relatives get preference. If someone comes forward who's suitable and wants them, they would have priority over foster placement. Warren felt a surge of panic. He'd promised Tessa and Corey they'd stay together, that they'd be safe. What if he couldn't keep that promise? How long until you know more? A few weeks, maybe. I'll keep you updated. After Brianna and Helen left, Warren tried to push the worry aside. He wouldn't borrow trouble. For now, Tessa and Corey were with him and he would make every day count. That evening he took them to a bookstore. Pick out whatever you want, he told them. Corey chose adventure books and comics. Tessa selected novels and a journal. I want to write down my memories, she explained. Of Grandma and of being here with you. Warren bought everything they wanted, plus some books on parenting he thought might be helpful. As they walked back to his car, Corey slipped his hand into Warren's. It was such a simple gesture, but it meant everything. Trust. connection. The beginning of a bond that Warren hoped would last a lifetime. Later that night, as Warren tucked them both into bed, Tessa looked up at him seriously. "Warren, even if we have to leave someday, I want you to know something." "What's that?" "You saved us. Not just from the cold that night, but from feeling like nobody cared. You made us feel like we mattered. I'll never forget that." Warren's eyes burned with unshed tears. "You're not going anywhere, sweetheart. Not if I have anything to say about it." But as he closed their bedroom door, he wondered if that was a promise he could keep. The system had rules, procedures, priorities. And despite all his money and resources, Warren couldn't control everything. All he could do was love these children with everything he had and fight like hell to keep them safe. Whatever challenges came, whatever obstacles appeared, he would face them. Because Tessa and Corey weren't just his foster children. They were becoming his family. And family was worth fighting for. Brianna Mitchell had been a social worker for 8 years, and she thought she'd seen everything. But Warren Bishop and his instant devotion to Tessa and Corey surprised her. In her experience, people with his kind of wealth usually treated foster care as a charity project, something to make themselves feel good. But Warren was different. She'd watched him carefully over the past 2 weeks. The way he listened when the children spoke, really listened. The way he researched parenting techniques late at night, she knew because he'd emailed her questions at 2 in the morning. The way his entire penthouse had transformed from a sterile showcase to a real home, with children's drawings on the refrigerator and toys in the living room. Brianna had to admit she was impressed. More than that, she was intrigued. Warren Bishop was undeniably handsome. Tall, fit, with dark hair that was just starting to gray at the temples. But it wasn't his looks that drew her attention. It was his sincerity, his genuine care for 2 children he barely knew. During one of her visits, she found Warren on the floor playing a board game with Tessa and Corey. His expensive suit jacket was draped over a chair, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He was laughing at something Corey had said, completely relaxed and present. When he noticed Brianna at the door, he smiled. "Sorry, we're in the middle of an intense Monopoly game. Give us 5 minutes? Take your time." Brianna watched as they finished the game. Corey won, and Warren made a big show of congratulating him. Tessa rolled her eyes but smiled, clearly enjoying the silliness. "All right, you two, why don't you go work on that puzzle we started yesterday?" Warren suggested. "I need to talk with Ms. Brianna." The children obediently went to the dining table where a large puzzle was set up. Warren gestured for Brianna to follow him to his office. "How are things going?" she asked, settling into a chair. "Really well, I think. The kids seem more comfortable every day. Corey's been talking more. Tessa's been smiling more. Those feel like good signs." "They are." Brianna consulted her notes. "I have some updates on the family search." Warren's expression grew serious. "Did you find someone?" "Possibly. I tracked down the grandmother's sister's children. There are 3 of them, all adults now. 2 live out of state and haven't responded to my calls yet. But the 3rd, a man named Gerald Hartley, lives about an hour from here. I spoke with him yesterday. And? He expressed some interest in the children. Said he'd like to meet them." Warren's jaw tightened. "What do you know about him?" "Not much yet. He's 52, divorced, no children of his own. Works in sales. No criminal record. On paper he seems okay. But I need to do a more thorough background check and home visit before I'd even consider placement." "He's family?" "He's their grandmother's step-nephew, technically. The relationship is pretty distant. But legally, it still gives him priority if he wants to pursue custody." Warren stood and walked to the window, his hands in his pockets. "What's your gut instinct about him?" Brianna appreciated that he asked. "My gut says to be cautious. Something about the call felt off. He asked a lot of questions about the grandmother's estate, whether there was any money or property left. That's not unusual, but it's also not a great sign when that's the first concern. So he might be interested in what he can get, not the children themselves." "Possibly. But I can't make that judgment without more information. I'm going to visit him next week, see his living situation, get a better sense of his motivations." Warren turned back to face her. "What can I do?" "Keep doing what you're doing. Build a strong case for yourself as their guardian. The more established they are here, the more stable and happy they appear, the more weight that carries in any custody decision. Even against blood family? Even against blood family. The court's primary concern is the best interest of the child. And right now, these kids are thriving with you." Warren nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Thank you for being honest with me. It's my job. But Warren, I want you to know something." Brianna hesitated, then continued. I've placed a lot of children over the years. Some situations work out, some don't. But I can honestly say I've never seen someone take to foster parenting as naturally as you have. Whatever happens with this Gerald situation, you've already made a huge difference in Tessa and Corey's lives. Something warm flickered in Warren's eyes. That means a lot coming from you. There was a moment of silence, comfortable but charged with something Brianna couldn't quite name. She found herself noticing details about Warren she tried to ignore before. The way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. The gentle tone he used when speaking about the children. The obvious care he'd put into making his home welcoming for them. Brianna stood, breaking the moment. I should go. Same time next week? Actually, before you leave, would you like to stay for dinner? Nothing fancy, just pasta and salad. But the kids would probably enjoy it, and it would give you a chance to see more of our daily routine. Brianna knew she should say no. She tried to maintain professional boundaries, and having dinner with foster parents crossed the line. But she found herself nodding. That would be nice. Thank you. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Warren cooked while Tessa set the table and Corey told elaborate stories about a superhero he'd invented. Brianna found herself laughing genuinely, relaxing in a way she rarely did during work visits. Miss Brianna, do you have kids? Corey asked around a mouthful of pasta. Corey, don't talk with your mouth full, Tessa chided. He swallowed. Sorry? But do you? No, I don't, Brianna answered. But I work with kids every day, so in a way I get to be part of lots of families. That's sad, Corey said matter-of-factly. You should have your own family. Corey, Warren said gently. That's personal. It's okay, Brianna assured him. Then to Corey, maybe someday. Right now, I'm happy helping kids like you find good homes. After dinner, the children went to watch a movie while Warren and Brianna cleaned up the kitchen together. It felt domestic, comfortable. Brianna handed him dishes to rinse while she loaded the dishwasher. Can I ask you something personal? Warren said. Sure. Why did you become a social worker? It's hard work, emotionally draining. You could probably make more money doing something else. Brianna smiled. You're right, I could. But this work matters. I became a social worker because I was raised by my grandmother after my parents died. She took me in without hesitation, loved me unconditionally, gave me everything she had. She couldn't officially adopt me because of legal complexities, but she raised me anyway. She showed me what it meant to step up for a child who needed help. She sounds like an amazing woman. She was. She passed away 5 years ago, but I think about her every day. Everything I do in this job, I do in her honor. Warren turned to look at her. So you understand what Tessa and Corey are going through. The loss, the fear, the need for stability. Yes. That's why I take their placement so seriously. They deserve what I had. Someone who truly cares. I care, Warren said quietly. More than I expected to. I know you do. I can see it. Their eyes met and Brianna felt that spark again. Warren Bishop was getting under her skin in ways that were completely inappropriate given their professional relationship. But she couldn't deny the connection she felt. Before things could get more complicated, she stepped back. I should probably go. Thank you for dinner. Thank you for staying. As Brianna drove home that night, she tried to analyze her feelings rationally. She was attracted to Warren, yes. But more than that, she admired him. His willingness to open his life to these children, his humility in asking for help when he didn't know something, his genuine transformation from isolated businessman to caring guardian. But she had a job to do. She needed to remain objective, especially with the Gerald situation looming. Personal feelings couldn't cloud her professional judgment. The following week, Brianna visited Gerald Hartley's home. It was a small house in a working-class neighborhood, neat but modest. Gerald himself was a large man with a ready smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Thank you for seeing me, Brianna said, settling on his worn couch. Of course. I want to help my family. They talked for over an hour. Gerald said all the right things about wanting to provide a home for the children, about family responsibility, about honoring his step-aunt's memory. But Brianna noticed he kept bringing up practical concerns. How much would the state provide in foster care payments? Would he have access to any inheritance the children might receive? What about medical expenses? Mr. Hartley, I need to be direct. Are you interested in the children because you care about them, or because you see a financial opportunity? Gerald's expression hardened. That's insulting. They're family. Family you've never met. That's not my fault. My step-aunt didn't keep in touch with our side. But blood is blood, right? Those kids deserve to be with family, not some rich stranger. Brianna made more notes, her instincts screaming that this man was wrong for Tessa and Corey. But instincts weren't enough. She needed concrete reasons to deny him. I'll need to do a thorough background check, home study, and interview your references. The process takes time. Fine. Do whatever you need to do. But those kids belong with me, not with some millionaire playing savior. As Brianna left, she felt deeply uneasy. Gerald's motives seemed questionable, but proving that would be difficult. And legally, he did have a claim as extended family. She drove straight to Warren's penthouse, needing to warn him. When he answered the door, his smile faded as soon as he saw her expression. What's wrong? We need to talk. Are the kids here? They're at a playdate with the neighbor's children. Won't be back for an hour. What happened? Brianna explained her visit with Gerald, her concerns, the legal reality that he could potentially claim custody. Warren listened silently, his expression growing darker. You think he just wants money? Warren said when she finished. I think it's likely. But I can't prove it yet. And even if his motives are partly financial, that doesn't automatically disqualify him. Plenty of foster parents have mixed motivations. But this is different. Tessa and Corey don't know him. They're happy here. Doesn't that count for something? It does. But family reunification is always the priority in cases like this, even with distant relatives. I'm going to fight it, Warren. I'm going to do everything in my power to prove he's not suitable. But you need to prepare for the possibility that I might not succeed. Warren sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. I promised them. I promised they'd be safe, that they'd stay together, that nobody would take them away. Brianna sat beside him, wanting to comfort him but unsure how. You've given them weeks of safety and love. That matters even if it ends up being temporary. It can't be temporary. It just can't. Warren looked at her, and Brianna saw genuine anguish in his eyes. I know this sounds crazy, but these kids have become my family. The family I never had. I can't lose them. Without thinking, Brianna reached out and took his hand. Then we'll fight. Together. I'll build the strongest case I can against Gerald. You keep being the amazing guardian you've been. We'll show the court that the children's best interest is staying with you. You do that? Fight the system for us. Yes. Because I believe in doing what's right. And keeping Tessa and Corey with you is right. Warren squeezed her hand. Thank you, Brianna. For everything. They sat like that for a moment, hands clasped, united in purpose. Brianna knew she was crossing professional lines, letting her emotions guide her decisions. But sometimes the rules needed to be bent for the greater good. There's something else, Warren said. I've been thinking about this a lot. If Gerald pushes for custody, would it strengthen my case if I filed for adoption? Show that my commitment is permanent. It might. But adoption is a huge step, Warren. It's forever. You need to be absolutely sure. I am sure. Warren's voice was steady, certain. I want to adopt them. I want to be their father, legally and permanently. If that helps keep them safe, then I want to start the process immediately. Brianna's heart swelled. This was what she'd hoped to find for Tessa and Corey. Someone who loved them completely, who wanted them permanently. All right. I'll help you start the paperwork. But Warren, the adoption process takes time. Months, sometimes years. And it doesn't guarantee Gerald won't be able to claim them in the interim. I understand. But it's the right move. I can feel it. As Brianna prepared to leave, Warren walked her to the door. Can I ask you something? Of course. Would you like to have dinner with me? Just the two of us, not a professional visit. A real date. Brianna's breath caught. She'd been expecting this, dreading and hoping for it in equal measure. Warren, I'm your caseworker. There are ethical boundaries. I know. But Brianna, I can't stop thinking about you. The way you care about the kids, your strength, your compassion. You're incredible. And I think you feel something too. She did. She absolutely did. But admitting it felt dangerous. Even if I do, acting on it could jeopardize everything. If anyone found out we were involved, it could hurt your custody case. Then we'll wait. Until everything is settled, until you're no longer officially my caseworker. But Brianna, I need you to know I'm interested. Very interested. Brianna looked into his eyes and saw sincerity, hope, and something deeper. Chemistry that couldn't be denied, no matter how hard she tried. Ask me again when this is all over, she said softly. When the kids are safe and settled. And I promise I'll say yes. Warren smiled, genuine and warm. That's all I needed to hear. As Brianna drove away, she felt a mix of professional concern and personal excitement. The situation was complicated, getting more so by the day. But she couldn't regret the connection she'd formed with Warren and the children. She would fight for them with everything she had. Because some families weren't built by blood. They were built by choice, by love, by people stepping up when others needed them most. And this family, however unconventional, was worth fighting for. Over the next 3 weeks, Warren threw himself into creating the best possible home for Tessa and Corey. He enrolled them in a local school with an excellent reputation. He signed Corey up for a youth sports league and Tessa for an art class she'd mentioned wanting to try. He established routines. Breakfast together every morning, homework help in the evening, story time before bed. The children blossomed under the stability. Corey's laughter became more frequent, his nightmares less so. Tessa started calling Warren by his first name without the hesitation she'd had initially, a small but significant sign of growing comfort. Warren had to reorganize his entire professional life. He promoted his second-in-command to handle day-to-day operations at his companies. He attended meetings via video call when possible and declined projects that would require extensive travel. His business associates were surprised by the change, but Warren didn't care what they thought. For the first time in his life, something mattered more than work. Brianna continued her regular visits, and Warren lived for those moments. Their conversations grew longer, more personal. They talked about their childhoods, their dreams, their fears. Always with professional distance, but the undercurrent of attraction was always there, humming between them. One Saturday, Warren took the children to a children's museum. They spent hours exploring exhibits, Corey fascinated by the dinosaur displays and Tessa drawn to the art studio. Warren took photos on his phone, wanting to remember every moment. As they left, tired and happy, Corey grabbed Warren's hand. "This was the best day ever. I'm glad you had fun, buddy." "Warren, can I ask you something?" "Anything. Can we call you Dad?" Warren stopped walking, his heart suddenly pounding. Tessa, walking on his other side, looked up at him anxiously. "Corey, we talked about this," she said. "We can't just assume." But Warren knelt down to Corey's level. "You want to call me Dad?" Corey nodded. "If that's okay. You do dad things. You take care of us and make us food and help us with homework. That's what dads do, right?" Warren's eyes burned. "That's exactly what dads do. And yes, Corey, you can call me Dad if you want to." "What about me?" Tessa asked quietly. Warren turned to her. "You can call me whatever you're comfortable with. Dad, Warren, whatever feels right to you." Tessa threw her arms around his neck. "Thank you, Dad." Warren held both children tightly, not caring that people were walking past them, not caring about anything except this perfect moment. His children. Because that's what they were now in his heart, regardless of what the paperwork said. Later that evening, after the kids were asleep, Warren called Brianna. He needed to share the news with someone who would understand what it meant. "They called me Dad," he said as soon as she answered. He could hear the smile in Brianna's voice. "That's wonderful, Warren. How do you feel?" "Terrified. Overwhelmed. Incredibly happy." "Is that normal?" "Completely normal. You're building something real with them. Of course it's emotional." They talked for over an hour, and Warren found himself sharing things he'd never told anyone. His fears about not being good enough, his worries about Gerald's custody claim, his hope that maybe for the first time in his life he could have a real family. "You're already a real family," Brianna said gently. "Biology doesn't determine that. Love does. And Warren, anyone can see how much you love those kids." "I do. More than I knew I could love anything." There was a pause, then Brianna said, "I have news about Gerald." The background check came back. Warren's stomach tightened. "And?" "He's had some financial troubles. A bankruptcy 8 years ago, multiple late payments on bills, an eviction 5 years back. Nothing criminal, but it paints a picture of instability. Combined with his focus on financial matters during our conversation, I think I can build a case that he's not the best placement for the children." Hope surged through Warren. "So they can stay with me?" "Nothing's guaranteed. Gerald still has family rights. But this definitely helps your case. I'm filing a report recommending against his custody claim. The court will make the final decision, but my opinion carries weight." "Thank you, Brianna. Seriously, thank you. I'm just doing my job." "No, you're doing more than that. You're fighting for these kids because you believe in them. That's not just a job." Another pause, heavier this time. "Warren, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I'm requesting to be taken off your case. I'm going to ask for another caseworker to handle the final stages of your adoption process." Warren's heart sank. "What? Did I do something wrong?" "No. You've done everything right. That's the problem." Brianna sighed. "Warren, I'm getting too close to this situation. Too invested. My objectivity is compromised. And I think you know why. Because of us. What we feel. Yes. I've been lying to myself, pretending I can maintain professional boundaries. But I can't. Every time I visit, I'm not just seeing a foster parent and children. I'm seeing people I care about deeply. And that's not fair to anyone. Warren's mind raced. If you step away from the case, does that mean we can actually explore whatever this is between us? Maybe. Once everything is finalized with the adoption. But Warren, I need you to understand something. This doesn't change my commitment to helping Tessa and Corey. I'll still fight for them behind the scenes. I'll make sure whoever takes over the case understands how important your family is. I just can't be the one overseeing it anymore. I understand. And Brianna? I think you're making the right call. Because what I feel for you, it's not something I can ignore or set aside. And I don't want to risk the kid's placement because we're trying to deny what's happening between us. What is happening between us? Brianna asked softly. Warren chose his words carefully. Something real. Something worth waiting for. Something I want to explore once the timing is right. Me too. They said goodnight, and Warren sat in the quiet of his living room processing everything. The day had been full of highs and lows. Being called dad, then learning Brianna was stepping away from the case, then understanding it was actually a positive step toward something more. Life had become complicated in ways Warren never could have predicted. But it was also richer, fuller, more meaningful than anything he'd experienced before. The next day, a new caseworker arrived for a scheduled visit. Her name was Patricia Lopez, a serious woman in her 40s with decades of experience. Brianna had clearly briefed her thoroughly because Patricia seemed to already understand the situation well. Ms. Mitchell spoke very highly of your family, Patricia said, observing as Corey showed her his collection of toy cars. She's quite invested in ensuring this placement succeeds. She's been incredible, Warren agreed. Patricia spent several hours with them, asking questions, observing interactions, taking notes. When she finished, she seemed satisfied. You're doing well, Mr. Bishop. The children are clearly thriving. I'll continue Ms. Mitchell's work on your adoption application. Given the circumstances and the children's clear bond with you, I'm optimistic about the outcome. What about Gerald Hartley? Patricia's expression grew stern. I've reviewed Ms. Mitchell's report on Mr. Hartley. Combined with his financial history and his concerning focus on monetary matters, I don't believe he's a suitable guardian for Tessa and Corey. I'll be recommending to the court that his custody claim be denied. Relief flooded through Warren. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. He has the right to challenge my recommendation. This could still end up in court. But I believe we have a strong case for keeping the children with you. After Patricia left, Warren gathered Tessa and Corey together. I need to tell you guys something important. They sat on the couch, looking up at him with trusting eyes. There's a man named Gerald who says he's related to your grandmother. He's asked if he can take care of you instead of me. Tessa's face went pale. No. We don't want to go with him. We want to stay here. I know, sweetheart. And that's what I'm fighting for. But I need you to understand that the court might ask you questions. They might want to know what you want, how you feel about living here versus living with Gerald. We'll tell them we want to stay with you, Corey said firmly. Because we do. Good. Because I want you to stay too. In fact, I've filed papers to adopt you. To make you officially my children forever. Tessa's eyes widened. Really? You want to adopt us? More than anything. Both children launched themselves at Warren, hugging him fiercely. Warren held them, making a silent promise that he would do whatever it took to make this adoption happen. No matter what challenges Gerald presented, no matter what hurdles the system put in their way, he would fight. Because these were his kids now. And he didn't take that responsibility lightly. Over the following weeks, the routine continued. School activities, family dinners, bedtime stories. Warren learned to braid Tessa's hair, not well, but she appreciated the effort. He learned all the rules to Corey's favorite card game. He attended parent-teacher conferences and school performances. He was learning to be a father, and while it wasn't always easy, it was always worth it. One evening, while helping Tessa with her homework, she looked up at him seriously. Dad, can I tell you something? Of course. I'm scared that Gerald is going to take us away. I know you're fighting to keep us, but what if you can't? What if the court says we have to go with him because he's family? Warren set down his pen and gave Tessa his full attention. I'm scared of that too. But Tessa, I want you to know something. No matter what happens, no matter what some court decides, you will always be my daughter. Corey will always be my son. Maybe not legally, maybe not on paper, but in my heart. Nothing can change that. But if we have to leave, Then I'll fight to see you. I'll fight to stay in your life. I'll never stop fighting for you. That's what parents do. They don't give up on their children ever. Tessa wiped her eyes. I don't want another family. I want this one. With you and Corey and maybe Ms. Brianna someday. Warren smiled despite the emotion tightening his throat. You noticed that, huh? Of course. She looks at you the way you look at her. Like you both want something but you're not allowed to have it yet. You're pretty perceptive for an 8-year-old. 9 next month. Right. I have that marked on the calendar. We're doing something special for your birthday. Will Ms. Brianna come? I hope so. If she's allowed to. That night, after the children were asleep, Warren allowed himself to think about the future he wanted. Not just with Tessa and Corey but with Brianna too. He could see it so clearly, the 4 of them as a family building a life together. But first he had to make sure the foundation was secure. The adoption had to go through. Gerald's claim had to be denied. Only then could he and Brianna explore what they were to each other. Warren pulled out his laptop and composed an email to his lawyer, updating him on the situation and asking for advice on strengthening the adoption case. Then he sent another email to Patricia, confirming their next meeting. He was preparing for battle, gathering his resources, building his case. Because this wasn't about money or power or winning. This was about family. His family. And Warren Bishop had learned something important over the past few weeks. Love makes you braver than you ever thought possible. It makes you fight harder, hope deeper, try longer. He'd found his purpose in 2 children who needed him. And now he would prove he deserved to be their father. Whatever it took. Patricia Lopez was nothing if not thorough. Her home visits became more intensive as the adoption process moved forward. She interviewed Warren, the children, neighbors, teachers, even Warren's business associates. She wanted a complete picture of his life, his character, his suitability as a parent. One afternoon, during a particularly detailed interview, Patricia was reviewing the children's background files. Warren sat across from her in his office, answering questions about his daily routine with Tessa and Corey. Patricia frowned at something in the file. Mr. Bishop, I'm looking at the grandmother's full name here. Evelyn Bishop. That's right. And your last name is also Bishop. That's quite a coincidence. Warren felt a strange chill. It's not that uncommon a name. But Patricia was already pulling up something on her tablet. I'm looking at your family history here, what we have on file from when you were in foster care as a child. Your mother's maiden name was Bishop. Your father was Warren Bishop Sr. Yes. And it says here your mother had a sister. Ruth Bishop. Patricia looked up, her expression stunned. Mr. Bishop, did you know your mother had a sister? No. My parents died when I was 7. I never knew about extended family. Patricia turned her tablet to show him. Ruth Bishop married a man named Thomas Green. They had 1 daughter. Evelyn Green, who later married someone named Santiago Rodriguez and took his name. Evelyn Rodriguez. Warren's world tilted. Are you saying? I'm saying that Tessa and Corey's grandmother, Evelyn Rodriguez, was your cousin. Which makes these children your first cousins once removed. Mr. Bishop, you're not just some stranger who took them in. You're their family. Warren stared at the documents, his mind struggling to process this information. The grandmother who'd raised Tessa and Corey had been his first cousin. The aunt he never knew existed had been their great-grandmother. I had no idea, he whispered. How did I not know? Patricia reviewed the files. It looks like your mother's sister moved away before you were born. Different state, different life. And when you went into foster care after your parents died, there's no record of anyone trying to locate extended family. It was a different time, less comprehensive record-keeping. So all this time they were my family. Real blood family. Yes. And Mr. Bishop, this changes everything. This isn't a foster situation anymore. You're not adopting strangers. You're taking in your own family members. The court will view this completely differently. Your claim to the children is now stronger than Gerald Hartley's, because you're more closely related. Warren couldn't speak. His throat was too tight, his emotions too overwhelming. All his life he believed he had no family. He'd built his fortune alone, lived alone, convinced himself he didn't need anyone. But he'd had family out there. A cousin who'd lived just a few hours away, who'd raised 2 beautiful children. And when those children needed help, when they ended up alone in an alley on Christmas Eve, they'd found their way to him. The universe had guided them to family. Does this mean Gerald's claim is invalid? Warren finally managed to ask. Not invalid but significantly weakened. You're a closer blood relation. Combined with the fact that the children are thriving with you, that they want to stay with you, and that Gerald's motivations are questionable, I'd say his case is essentially dead. Warren stood and walked to the window looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, his cousin Evelyn had lived and worked and raised 2 children. She'd lost her daughter, struggled as a single grandmother, fought cancer alone. And all the while, Warren had been here, wealthy enough to help, connected by blood, completely unaware. "I wish I'd known," he said. "I wish I could have helped her. Maybe if I'd known about Evelyn, I could have made her life easier. She wouldn't have died alone." Patricia's expression softened. "Mr. Bishop, you can't change the past. But you're giving her grandchildren everything she would have wanted for them. A stable home, opportunities, love. In a way, you're honoring her memory by being the family these children need. I need to tell them. They should know we're actually related." "I agree. And I think it will help them feel even more secure. They're not just living with a kind stranger. They're living with family." After Patricia left, Warren sat with the information for a while. His mind kept returning to his mother, Ruth Bishop. She'd had a sister. An older sister who'd moved away, who she might have lost touch with over time. Had his mother known about Evelyn? Had she tried to stay in contact? Warren pulled out the old photographs from his desk drawer again. There was one of his mother at what looked like a family gathering. Warren had assumed the other people were friends or his father's relatives. But now he looked closer. There, in the background, was a teenage girl who looked remarkably like his mother. Same eyes, same smile. Was that Ruth, his aunt? His mother would have been in her 20s in this photo, which meant Ruth would have been maybe 16 or 17. They'd been sisters once, before life and distance separated them. And now, decades later, their descendants had found each other through chance and fate. When Tessa and Corey came home from school, Warren asked them to sit down. He had something important to tell them. "Remember how Patricia was here earlier? She discovered something about our family histories." "What?" Tessa asked. Warren took a deep breath. "Your grandmother, Evelyn, was my cousin. My mother had a sister named Ruth, and Ruth was Evelyn's mother. That makes you and Corey my first cousins once removed. We're actually related by blood." Both children stared at him in shock. Then Tessa said, "You're our cousin? We're really family?" "Yes, real family." Corey's face lit up. "So we're supposed to be together. That's why you found us in the alley. Because we're family." "I think you might be right, buddy." Tessa started crying, but they were happy tears. "Grandma used to tell us about family being important. She said blood meant something, that family took care of each other. I think she'd be happy that we found you." Warren pulled both children into a hug. "I think so too. And Tessa, Corey, this means my claim to adopt you is even stronger now. The court will see that you're with family where you belong." "What about that Gerald man?" Corey asked. "He's more distantly related than I am. The court will probably rule in our favor now." Tessa looked up at Warren. "So we're really going to stay? Forever?" "Forever." That evening, Warren called Brianna to share the news. She answered on the second ring, and he could hear the smile in her voice when she said his name. "Brianna, you won't believe what Patricia discovered today." He explained everything. The connection, the family tree, the implications for the custody case. Brianna listened in silence, then let out a long breath. "Warren, that's incredible. I mean, the odds of this, they're astronomical. You finding the kids in the alley, taking them in, never knowing you were related. It's like something out of a movie." "I know. I keep thinking about everything that had to happen for us to find each other. If I'd taken a different route home that night. If they'd hidden somewhere else. If I'd walked past without stopping. But you didn't. You stopped. You helped. And now you know why you felt such a strong connection to them. It wasn't just compassion. It was blood calling to blood. Do you think Evelyn somehow knew? When she was raising them, do you think she ever talked about having a cousin named Warren? Tessa would remember if she had. But Warren, even if Evelyn didn't know about you specifically, she raised those children with love and values. She prepared them to recognize goodness when they saw it. That's why Tessa trusted you enough to accept your help that night." Warren thought about the little girl in the alley, terrified and protective, begging him not to hurt them. She'd been so afraid, but she'd also been brave enough to eventually trust him. Maybe some part of her had sensed the connection between them, the family bond that existed beneath everything else. "When can I see you?" Warren asked. "I want to celebrate this news properly. Warren, I'm still technically connected to your case through the agency. I can't. Come on. One dinner. Unofficial, off the record. We have so much to celebrate. The kids found family. Gerald's claim is basically dead. The adoption is moving forward. I want to share that with you." Brianna was quiet for a moment. Then she said, One dinner. But somewhere quiet, where we won't run into anyone from the agency. I'll make reservations. This Saturday? Saturday works. After they hung up, Warren felt lighter than he had in weeks. Everything was falling into place. The adoption would go through. Gerald would lose his claim. And he could finally explore his feelings for Brianna without jeopardizing everything. That night, as Warren tucked Tessa into bed, she grabbed his hand. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you think our moms are watching us? Like, from heaven or wherever people go?" Warren sat on the edge of her bed. "I'd like to think so." "Why do you ask?" "Because I think they'd be happy. Your mom and my mom, they were cousins too, right? So maybe they're together somewhere and they can see that we found each other. That we're taking care of each other the way families should." Warren's eyes burned with unshed tears. "I think you're absolutely right. I think they're both very happy." "Good. Because I'm happy too. I was so scared for so long, but now I feel safe. Like everything is going to be okay." "Everything is going to be okay, sweetheart. I promise you that." As Warren closed her door and walked to his own room, he reflected on how much his life had changed in just 6 weeks. He'd gone from isolated and lonely to having a full, rich family life. He'd discovered relatives he never knew existed. He'd found purpose and meaning beyond money and success. And he'd met Brianna, a woman who understood him in ways no one else ever had. The road ahead still had challenges. The adoption process would take months to finalize. There would be court hearings and paperwork and bureaucracy. Gerald might try to fight back. But none of that scared Warren anymore. He had family to fight for. And that made him stronger than he'd ever been alone. That Saturday, Warren met Brianna at a quiet Italian restaurant on the edge of the city. She'd dressed in a beautiful maroon dress, her hair loose around her shoulders. Warren's breath caught when he saw her. "You look beautiful." "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." They settled into a corner booth, ordered wine, and for the first time since they'd met, allowed themselves to just be two people interested in each other, not caseworker and foster parent. "Tell me about your life before all this," Brianna said. Who was Warren Bishop before Tessa and Corey? Warren thought about how to answer. "Honestly? Pretty empty. I worked constantly. Built my businesses, made investments, accumulated wealth. I had acquaintances but no real friends. I dated occasionally but never let anyone get close. I told myself I was happy but I wasn't. I was just existing. And now I'm actually living. I wake up with purpose. I go to sleep knowing I made a difference in someone's life. The kids have given me something I didn't even know I needed." Brianna smiled. "They've changed you. I saw it happening over these weeks. You went from this formal businessman to a real father. It's been beautiful to watch. What about you? What's your story before social work?" Brianna shared more about her childhood, her grandmother who raised her, her decision to dedicate her life to helping children. She talked about the cases that kept her up at night, the successes that made it all worthwhile, the constant battle against a system that didn't always prioritize what was best for kids. "You're remarkable," Warren said. "The way you fight for these children, the way you refuse to accept anything less than what they deserve. That takes incredible strength. I learned from the best. My grandmother never gave up on me, so I don't give up on any child in my care." They talked for hours, the restaurant gradually emptying around them. Neither wanted the evening to end. Finally, when the waiter politely mentioned they were closing, Warren and Brianna reluctantly stood to leave. Outside, in the cool night air, Warren walked Brianna to her car. They stopped beside it, neither quite ready to say goodbye. "Warren, I need to tell you something," Brianna said. "I've been fighting with myself about this, trying to maintain professional boundaries, but I can't pretend anymore. I have feelings for you. Real deep feelings. And not just because of who you are with the kids, though that's part of it, but because of who you are as a person." Warren stepped closer. "I feel the same way. I have since almost the beginning. You're strong and compassionate and beautiful inside and out. You make me want to be better, do better. So what do we do about this?" "We wait. Just a little longer. Until the adoption is finalized, until there's no possible conflict of interest. And then, Brianna Mitchell, I'm going to properly court you. I'm going to take you on real dates and introduce you to the kids as more than just their social worker. I'm going to show you how serious I am about building a future that includes you." Brianna smiled, her eyes bright with emotion. "That sounds perfect." Warren wanted to kiss her. The urge was nearly overwhelming. But he held back, respecting the boundaries that still existed between them. Instead, he took her hand and squeezed it gently. "Soon," he promised. "Soon," she agreed. As Warren drove home, he felt a sense of completeness he'd never experienced before. His family was coming together in ways he couldn't have imagined. Tessa and Corey, his blood relatives and chosen children. Brianna, who could maybe someday be more. Everything he'd ever wanted was within reach. He just needed to be patient a little longer, let the legal process run its course, and then he could finally claim the life he deserved. The life that had started with a little girl's desperate plea in a snowy alley. Don't hurt us. He hadn't hurt them. He'd saved them. But the truth was they'd saved him too. The next few weeks brought a flurry of activity. Gerald Hartley, upon learning about Warren's blood connection to the children, demanded DNA testing to verify the relationship. Patricia arranged it without hesitation, confident in the results. When the test confirmed Warren was indeed related to Tessa and Corey, Gerald's lawyer tried a different approach. He argued that Warren's wealth and lifestyle would spoil the children, that they needed a more modest upbringing, that a working-class home like Gerald's would be better for building character. It was grasping at straws and everyone knew it. The court scheduled a hearing for mid-March. Both Warren and Gerald would present their cases, and the judge would make a final ruling on custody and Warren's adoption petition. Warren hired the best family law attorney in the state, a woman named Jennifer Wu who had a reputation for never losing a case involving children's welfare. She was fierce, thorough, and completely committed to winning. "Mr. Bishop, I've reviewed everything," Jennifer told him during their first meeting. The DNA results, Patricia's reports, the children's statements, Gerald's background. "This case is solid. You're going to win. You sound very confident." "I am." "Gerald Hartley has nothing except a distant family connection. You have blood relation, financial stability, the children's clear preference, months of successful foster care, and glowing reports from every caseworker and teacher involved. Unless something dramatic changes, the judge will rule in your favor." But Warren couldn't relax until it was official. He'd learned not to take anything for granted, especially when it came to the legal system and children. During this time, Tessa's 9th birthday arrived. Warren had been planning for weeks, wanting to make it special. He'd initially thought about a big party with lots of kids from school, but Tessa had quietly mentioned she'd prefer something small. "Just us," she'd said. "Our family." So Warren planned an intimate celebration. He decorated the apartment with streamers and balloons in Tessa's favorite purple color. He ordered a custom cake from the best bakery in the city. And he invited Brianna with Patricia's blessing. "The case is essentially over," Patricia had said. "The hearing is just a formality at this point. I don't see any ethical issue with Ms. Mitchell attending a birthday party." When Brianna arrived, carrying a wrapped present, Tessa's face lit up. "You came." "Of course I did. I wouldn't miss your birthday." They had pizza and cake and played games. Corey was in high spirits, already planning his own birthday party in 6 months. Warren took pictures of everything, wanting to remember every detail of this perfect day. When it was time for presents, Tessa opened Corey's gift first, a friendship bracelet he'd made himself in art class. Then Warren's, a professional art set with paints, brushes, canvases, everything she needed to pursue her interest in painting. Finally, Brianna's gift, a beautiful journal with Tessa's name embossed on the cover. "For writing down your thoughts and memories," Brianna said. "I had one when I was your age and it helped me process everything I was feeling." Tessa hugged her tightly. "Thank you. For this and for everything else." After the kids went to bed, Warren and Brianna cleaned up together. It felt natural, comfortable, like they'd been doing this for years instead of months. "That was a perfect birthday," Brianna said. "She deserves perfect birthdays from now on. Perfect everything." Brianna turned to face him. "Warren, I need to tell you something. I've been offered a promotion at the agency. A supervisory position." "That's great. You deserve it. There's a catch. I'd be supervising other caseworkers, which means I'd be completely removed from hands-on cases. Including yours. The agency wants my decision by next week." Warren's heart sank. He wanted good things for Brianna, but selfishly he didn't want her to disappear from their lives. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to take it. Because it's the right career move, and because it means I'll finally be in a position where there's no ethical conflict between us. As a supervisor, I won't be directly involved in your case at all." Understanding dawned. Which means once this promotion is official, we can stop pretending we don't have feelings for each other. We can actually explore this thing between us without worrying about professional boundaries. Warren smiled. "When does the promotion start?" "Assuming I accept formally on Monday, April 1st. So in 2 weeks you'll be completely free of any conflict of interest?" "Yes." Warren stepped closer to her. Brianna Mitchell, would you like to go on a real date with me on April 2nd? I would love that. They were standing very close now, close enough that Warren could see flecks of gold in her brown eyes. Close enough to feel the warmth of her breath. Close enough that he could have kissed her easily. But he didn't. Not yet. They'd waited this long. They could wait 2 more weeks. I should go, Brianna said reluctantly. I know. But neither of them moved. Finally Brianna laughed softly. This is harder than I thought. Just 2 more weeks. Just 2 more weeks, she echoed. After Brianna left, Warren stood at his window looking out at the city lights. His life had become something he'd never imagined possible. He had children who called him Dad. He had a woman who made his heart race every time she walked into a room. He had family dinners and homework help and bedtime stories. He had everything he'd ever wanted without knowing he wanted it. His phone buzzed. A text from Brianna. I forgot to mention. The hearing has been moved up to March 28th. Jennifer probably already told you. Warren checked his calendar. March 28th was 3 days away. His stomach fluttered with nervousness but also anticipation. In 3 days this would all be settled. Gerald would lose his claim. The adoption would be approved. Warren would officially become Tessa and Corey's father. He texted back. Jennifer told me. I'm ready. Brianna, you're going to win. I know it. Warren, thank you for believing in us. Brianna, always. Warren sat down on the couch thinking about the hearing. Jennifer had prepared him thoroughly. He knew what questions to expect, how to present himself, what to emphasize. But more than any strategy or legal maneuvering, Warren had the truth on his side. He loved these children. He'd proven he could care for them. They were happy and thriving in his home. That's what mattered. The next 3 days passed in a blur. Warren tried to maintain normalcy for the kids, not wanting them to stress about the hearing. But Tessa, perceptive as always, noticed his tension. Are you worried about court? She asked the night before. A little. But mostly I'm just ready for it to be over so we can move forward. What if the judge says we have to go with Gerald? Warren pulled her close. That's not going to happen. But Tessa, even in the absolute worst-case scenario, even if something goes terribly wrong, I want you to remember something. You and Corey will always be my children. No court, no piece of paper, nothing can change that. You're mine and I'm yours forever. Tessa buried her face against his shoulder. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart. So much. On the morning of March 28th, Warren put on his best suit. He looked at himself in the mirror, trying to see what the judge would see. A successful businessman? A lonely man trying to buy a family? Or a father fighting for his children? He hoped it was the last one. Because that's who he'd become. Jennifer met him at the courthouse. Ready? As ready as I'll be. Remember, let me do most of the talking. Answer questions honestly and directly. And Warren breathed. This is going to be fine. They entered the courtroom. Gerald was already there with his lawyer, looking uncomfortable in an ill-fitting suit. Patricia sat in the gallery as did Brianna, both there to support Warren. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Caroline Stevens, called the case to order. We're here today to determine custody of minor children Tessa and Corey Rodriguez, she began. And to rule on Mr. Warren Bishop's petition for adoption. Let's begin. Gerald's lawyer went first, presenting his case. He argued that Gerald was family, that the children deserved to grow up in a modest home with working-class values, that Warren's wealth created an unhealthy environment. It was weak, and Judge Stevens' expression showed she thought so too. Then Jennifer presented Warren's case. She was brilliant, methodical, devastating. She laid out the DNA evidence proving Warren's closer relationship. She presented Patricia's reports showing the children's remarkable progress in Warren's care. She submitted testimonials from teachers, neighbors, Dr. Anderson, everyone who'd interacted with the family. Your Honor, Jennifer concluded, this isn't a case of a wealthy man trying to buy children. This is a case of family finding family. Mr. Bishop is these children's blood relative. He's provided them with stability, love, and security. They call him Dad. They've bonded with him. And most importantly, they want to stay with him. Everything else is irrelevant in the face of that fundamental truth. Judge Stevens called a recess, saying she needed to review everything privately. Warren sat in the hallway with Jennifer, his heart pounding. You did great, she assured him. Your testimony was perfect. Now we just wait. Brianna approached, ignoring the professional distance she'd been maintaining. She sat beside Warren and took his hand. Whatever happens, you've given those children something precious. Remember that. I just want them to be mine. Officially, permanently mine. They will be. After an hour that felt like an eternity, Judge Stevens called them back into the courtroom. Everyone stood as she entered and took her seat. I've reviewed all the evidence and testimonies presented today, she began. This was, in some ways, a very simple case. Mr. Hartley, while you are technically related to these children, your connection is distant and your motivations questionable. Your financial instability and your focus on monetary matters throughout this process have not impressed this court. Gerald's face reddened, but he said nothing. Judge Stevens turned to Warren. Mr. Bishop, you are these children's closest living blood relative. You've provided them with exceptional care. Every report indicates they are thriving in your home. The children themselves have made their preferences clear. And your commitment to them appears genuine and complete. Warren held his breath. Therefore, it is the judgment of this court that Gerald Hartley's custody claim is denied. Furthermore, Warren Bishop's petition for adoption is approved. Effective immediately, you are the legal father of Tessa and Corey Rodriguez, who will now take the surname Bishop if they so choose. Relief crashed over Warren like a wave. He'd won. They'd won. Jennifer squeezed his arm. Congratulations, Mr. Bishop. You're officially a dad. Warren turned to see Patricia and Brianna both wiping tears from their eyes. Gerald was already leaving, his lawyer looking relieved to be done with the case. Outside the courtroom, Warren called the school where the kids were waiting. Can you please tell Tessa and Corey that their dad is coming to pick them up? And that we have good news to celebrate? When he arrived at the school, both children were waiting in the office. They ran to him, anxious and hopeful. Well? Tessa asked. We won. Gerald's claim was denied, and the adoption was approved. You're officially Tessa and Corey Bishop now. My children. Forever. They both screamed with joy and hugged him so tightly Warren could barely breathe. The school secretary was smiling, clearly moved by the scene. Let's go home, Warren said. Our home. That evening, Warren ordered in from Tessa's favorite restaurant. He invited Patricia and Brianna to join them for a celebration dinner. They sat around his dining table, which had once hosted business meetings but now held his family, and toasted to new beginnings. To Dad, Tessa said, raising her glass of sparkling cider. To our family, Corey added. To the bravest kids I know, Warren said. And to the people who helped us get here. He looked at Brianna as he said it and she smiled back, her eyes full of promise for the future. After dinner, after Patricia left and the kids went to bed, Brianna stayed to help clean up. But they both knew it wasn't really about the dishes. So, Brianna said, I accept that promotion officially tomorrow. And I officially become a single dad tomorrow. Which means in a week when you asked me out for April 2nd. I'm still asking. Brianna, would you like to have dinner with me? Just the two of us as two people who've been waiting months to explore what this could be. Yes. Absolutely yes. This time, when they stood close, there were no ethical barriers, no professional conflicts. Warren cupped her face gently, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. She didn't want to. Their first kiss was tender and sweet, full of all the emotion they'd been holding back for months. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. Worth the wait? Warren asked. Completely worth it. After Brianna left, Warren checked on the kids one more time. Both were sound asleep, peaceful and secure in the knowledge that their lives were finally stable. Warren stood in the hallway between their rooms, overwhelmed with gratitude. He'd been given a second chance at family, at love, at happiness. And he wasn't going to take a single moment of it for granted. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The adjustment to being a legal parent. Planning a future with Brianna. Helping Tessa and Corey heal from their early traumas. But tonight, Warren just wanted to savor this moment of complete, perfect happiness. His children were sleeping safely under his roof. The woman he loved had kissed him. Everything he'd ever dreamed of was real. Life was good. Better than good. It was exactly what it should be. Spring arrived in full force, bringing warmer weather and a sense of renewal. Warren settled into his new reality as a legal father. He updated all the children's records, enrolled them in a better school for the fall, started planning a summer vacation. His relationship with Brianna deepened quickly. Their first official date led to a second, then a third. Soon they were seeing each other several times a week. The children adored her, already asking when she was going to officially join their family. Not yet, Warren told them. Let's take things one step at a time. But privately he was already thinking about the future. About marriage, about Brianna becoming the children's mother, about building something permanent and beautiful. Everything seemed perfect. Too perfect. Warren should have known something would go wrong. It started with a phone call in early April. Warren was at work in his first full day back at the office since the adoption finalized, when his assistant buzzed him. "Mr. Bishop, there's a man here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent regarding Tessa and Corey." Warren's blood ran cold. "Send him in." The man who entered was younger than Warren expected, maybe 40, with sharp features and an expensive suit. He introduced himself as Lawrence Hartley, Gerald's younger brother. "I'm sorry to show up unannounced," Lawrence said, though he didn't sound sorry at all. "But we need to talk about my nephews." "Nephew and niece," Warren corrected. "And legally they're my children now. The court was very clear about that." "Yes, well, that's what I want to discuss." Lawrence settled into a chair without being invited. "My brother made some mistakes during the custody hearing. He presented himself poorly. But the fact remains that we are the children's family. I'm also their family. More closely related than Gerald, as the DNA tests proved." "True. But Mr. Bishop, I'm here to offer you a deal. My brother is willing to drop any future claims to the children, completely and permanently, if you're willing to compensate our family for our loss." Warren stared at him. "You want me to pay you to not fight for custody of children you've never even met? It's not uncommon in custody situations. Think of it as settling out of court, avoiding future legal battles. The children have presumably come into some inheritance from their grandmother, and my family has expenses related to her final medical bills and funeral costs. We're simply asking for what's owed to us." "How much?" $50,000. Warren's hands clenched into fists under his desk. This was extortion, pure and simple. But he forced himself to stay calm. "And if I refuse?" Lawrence's expression hardened. "Then my brother will continue to file appeals, custody challenges, and legal motions for years. We can make your life very difficult, Mr. Bishop. Court battles are expensive and stressful, especially for children. Wouldn't it be easier to just settle this now? Get out of my office." "Mr. Bishop, be reasonable. Get out before I have security remove you. And tell your brother that if he files a single appeal, I'll bury him in legal fees. I have unlimited resources. He doesn't. If he wants a war, I'll give him one he can't win." Lawrence stood, his face flushed. "You'll regret this. The only thing I regret is wasting time talking to you. Leave now." After Lawrence left, Warren immediately called Jennifer Wu. She listened to his account of the meeting, her anger building. "That's attempted extortion. I'll file a complaint with the court. This will actually strengthen your case if they try anything." "Can they really keep fighting?" "The judge ruled in my favor. They can try to appeal, but they won't succeed. Warren, this is a desperate move from desperate people. They're hoping you'll pay them to go away because it's easier. Don't give in." "I won't." But Warren was shaken. He thought this was over. He thought his family was secure. Now he realized there were people out there who would never stop trying to use the children for their own gain. That evening, Warren told Brianna what had happened. She was furious. "They're threatening to traumatize these kids with ongoing legal battles just to get money? That's disgusting. Jennifer says they won't succeed in any appeals. But still, the idea that someone would do this." Brianna took his hands. "Warren, you did the right thing refusing them. Giving in to extortion just encourages more of it. The children are safe. The law is on your side. Don't let these people scare you." "I'm not scared for me. I'm scared for Tessa and Corey. What if they find out about this? What if they realize there are people trying to take them away? Then we'll deal with it together. As a family." Warren pulled her close, grateful for her strength. With Brianna beside him, he felt like he could face anything. 2 days later, Gerald filed an appeal of Judge Stevens' ruling. Jennifer had predicted it, but seeing the legal papers still made Warren angry. She immediately filed a counter-motion and a formal complaint about Lawrence's attempted extortion. "This is going to get ugly," Jennifer warned. "They're going to try to drag your name through the mud, make you look like the villain. Can you handle that?" "For my kids? I can handle anything." The appeals process dragged on for weeks. Gerald's new lawyer, clearly being paid by Lawrence, made outrageous claims. They said Warren had manipulated the DNA tests. They said he bribed social workers. They said his wealth was being used to buy favorable treatment. None of it was true and none of it stuck, but the constant attacks were exhausting. Warren tried to shield Tessa and Corey from it all, but Tessa was smart. She knew something was wrong. "Dad, why are you so stressed lately?" she asked one evening. Warren chose honesty. "Remember Gerald? He's trying to challenge the adoption ruling. But it's not going to work. The law is on our side. Is he going to take us away? No, sweetheart. Never. I promise you that. But that night, Warren heard Corey crying in his room. He went in to find the little boy having a nightmare about being taken away from home. Warren held him until he calmed down. You're safe, buddy. I'm not going to let anyone take you anywhere you don't want to go. Promise? I promise. But as Warren lay in his own bed later, staring at the ceiling, he wondered how much these legal battles were costing the children emotionally. They'd finally started to feel secure, and now that security was being threatened. He couldn't let Gerald and Lawrence win. Not just legally but emotionally. He wouldn't let them steal his children's sense of safety. The next morning, Warren made a decision. He called a meeting with Jennifer, Brianna, Patricia, and even Judge Stevens' office to request an emergency hearing. I want to present evidence of attempted extortion, harassment, and the emotional harm being caused to the children by these frivolous appeals, Warren told Jennifer. Can we get that expedited? We can try. Judge Stevens agreed to an emergency hearing. When they reconvened in her courtroom, Warren presented documentation of Lawrence's visit, recorded phone calls from Gerald making threats, and statements from the children's therapist about the increased anxiety they were experiencing. Gerald and Lawrence's lawyer tried to downplay it all, but Judge Stevens was not amused. Gentlemen, she said coldly, I made my ruling clear months ago. These continued appeals are frivolous and harmful to the children in question. I am not only denying this appeal but I am issuing a restraining order. Neither Gerald Hartley nor Lawrence Hartley may contact Mr. Bishop, the children, or anyone in their family for any reason. Any future legal actions regarding these children will be viewed as harassment and dealt with accordingly. She slammed her gavel. This case is permanently closed. Get out of my courtroom. Warren felt relief wash over him. It was really over now. Gerald and Lawrence couldn't threaten them anymore. Outside the courtroom, Brianna hugged him tightly. You did it. You protected them. We did it. I couldn't have gotten through this without you. That's what family does. We protect each other. Warren realized she was right. They were a family now. Not just him and the kids but Brianna too. She'd been there through every challenge, every obstacle, every moment of doubt. That evening, Warren made an impulsive decision. He called Tessa and Corey into the living room. I need to talk to you both about something important. They sat down looking worried. Warren realized they'd come to associate serious conversations with bad news. No, nothing's wrong, he said quickly. Actually, something's very right. You know how much Brianna means to all of us. How she's been part of our family even before it was official. We love Brianna, Corey said. So do I. And I want to ask her to marry me. To officially join our family. But I wanted to check with you two first. Is that okay? Would you be happy if Brianna became your mom? Both children's faces lit up. Really? Tessa asked. You're going to marry her? If she says yes. And if you both are okay with it. We're more than okay, Tessa said. We've been hoping you'd ask her. Then I guess I need to buy a ring. The next week, Warren took Tessa and Corey with him to pick out an engagement ring. He wanted them involved in every step. They helped choose a beautiful diamond ring with a simple, elegant setting that perfectly suited Brianna's style. Now he just needed to plan the perfect proposal. But for tonight, Warren was content to sit with his children, watching a movie, grateful that the legal battles were finally over. Gerald and Lawrence had tried to use money and threats to destroy their family. But they'd failed. Because this family was built on something stronger than money or legal documents. It was built on love, choice, and commitment. And nothing could tear that apart. Warren planned the proposal carefully. He wanted it to be special, meaningful, something Brianna would remember forever. But more importantly, he wanted Tessa and Corey to be part of it. This wasn't just about him and Brianna, it was about becoming a complete family. He chose a Saturday in late May, during a family trip to the botanical gardens. Brianna loved nature and flowers, and the gardens were in full spring bloom. Warren arranged with the staff to set up a private area near the rose garden. As they walked through the gardens, Warren felt the ring box heavy in his pocket. Tessa and Corey knew what was coming, barely able to contain their excitement. They kept giggling and exchanging meaningful looks. Brianna noticed their behavior. What are you three up to? Nothing, Corey said, grinning widely. Just happy. Ah, sure. When they reached the rose garden, Warren guided them to the private area he'd arranged. A beautiful pergola covered in climbing roses, a small table set with champagne for the adults and sparkling cider for the kids, soft music playing in the background. Warren, what is all this? Brianna asked, her eyes widening. This is me, finally doing what I should have done weeks ago. Warren took her hands in his. Brianna, you walked into my life at exactly the moment I needed you. You helped me become a father. You fought for my children when they needed an advocate. You've been patient and strong and absolutely incredible through everything. Tears were already forming in Brianna's eyes. Warren, I love you. Not just for what you've done for me and the kids, but for who you are. Your compassion, your strength, your beautiful heart. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to build a life together, raise these amazing kids together, grow old together. Warren knelt down, pulling out the ring box. Behind him, Tessa and Corey were bouncing with excitement. Brianna Mitchell, will you marry me? Will you be my wife and the mother to Tessa and Corey? Will you make our family complete? Brianna was crying now, nodding before she could even speak. Yes. Yes, of course I'll marry you. Warren slipped the ring on her finger, then stood and kissed her. Tessa and Corey ran over, wrapping their arms around both of them in a group hug. Does this mean you're going to be our mom? Corey asked. Brianna knelt down to his level. If that's what you want, then yes. I would be honored to be your mom. We want it, Tessa said. We've wanted it for months. Then it's official. We're a family. They celebrated with the champagne and cider, taking photos under the rose-covered pergola. Warren had hired a photographer to capture the moment, wanting to remember every detail of this perfect day. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, Warren stood with his arm around Brianna, watching Tessa and Corey explore the gardens. His family. Complete and whole and exactly right. I can't believe this is my life, he said softly. Believe it, Brianna replied, leaning into him. You've earned every bit of happiness you have. So have you. You deserve everything good, Brianna. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you have it. They set a wedding date for October, giving them 5 months to plan. Brianna moved in with them over the summer, and they began the process of officially making her the children's adoptive mother as well. It required more paperwork, more home visits, but this time the process felt joyful rather than stressful. Tessa's anxiety decreased significantly with Brianna living in the home full-time. Having a mother figure seemed to fill a need she hadn't even realized she had. Corey called Brianna Mom within days, the word coming naturally to him. Everything was falling into place. Then in late July, another complication arose. Patricia called Warren with news. I've been contacted by another relative. This one is legitimate, a second cousin on the children's maternal grandfather's side. Her name is Helen Ross. She lives in California and just found out about Tessa and Corey's situation. Warren's stomach dropped. Is she going to try for custody? She says she just wants to meet them. She's elderly, in her 70s, and she says she simply wants to know her family. But Warren, given what happened with Gerald, I thought you should be aware before she makes contact. Thank you for the warning. What do you think I should do? Meet with her. Bring Jennifer if it makes you feel better. See what she wants. She might be exactly who she says she is, just an old woman wanting to connect with family. Warren discussed it with Brianna and Jennifer. They all agreed he should meet Helen, but cautiously. Jennifer would be present, and they'd meet in a neutral location. Helen Ross turned out to be exactly what she'd claimed, a sweet elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes. She brought photo albums showing the children's maternal grandfather as a young man, family trees, and stories about relatives Tessa and Corey had never known. I'm not here to cause problems, Helen assured Warren. I read about the custody battle in the news, and I'm horrified that anyone would try to hurt those children for money. I just wanted to meet them, to let them know they have more family out there who loves them. Warren studied her carefully. Unlike Gerald and Lawrence, Helen seemed genuine. Her concern was for the children, not for herself. Would you like to meet them? Warren asked. Under supervised conditions, of course. I would love that. Thank you. The meeting was arranged for the following week. Warren brought Tessa and Corey to a park, where Helen was waiting with her photo albums. Initially, the children were shy, remembering the trauma of Gerald's claims. But Helen was patient and gentle, letting them come to her at their own pace. She showed them pictures of their grandfather as a child, told them stories about family traditions, explained where certain features like Tessa's eyes or Corey's smile came from. Slowly, the children warmed to her. You have his nose, Helen told Corey, pointing to a picture of his grandfather. And your grandmother's laugh. Really? Corey studied the old photograph. Really? You come from good people, both of you. People who loved each other and loved their families. By the end of the visit, Tessa was hugging Helen and asking if they could see her again. Warren felt his guard lowering. This woman was the real deal, someone who genuinely cared about the children's well-being. Over the next few months, Helen became a regular part of their lives. She visited once a month, always bringing stories or photos or small gifts. She attended Tessa's school play and Corey's soccer game. She sent cards on their birthdays and holidays. She was, in short, exactly the kind of family Tessa and Corey deserved. The kind that showed up because they cared, not because they wanted something. At one of her visits, Helen pulled Warren aside. "I want to thank you for taking such good care of them. Their grandmother would be so grateful to know they ended up with you. I'm grateful too. They've given me more than I ever could have given them." "Family works that way," Helen said wisely. "We save each other." As autumn approached and the wedding drew near, Warren reflected on how far they'd all come. From that terrified little girl in an alley begging him not to hurt them to this. A real family with bonds stronger than blood. Gerald and Lawrence had tried to destroy what they were building, but they'd failed. Because real family isn't about biology or money or legal documents. It's about showing up. It's about choosing each other every single day. Warren had chosen Tessa and Corey that snowy Christmas Eve. And every day since he'd made that same choice. To be present, to be committed, to be their father in every way that mattered. Now, with Brianna joining them officially and Helen providing connection to their past, their family was complete. Not perfect because no family ever is. But whole. Real. The legal battles were over. The threats had been neutralized. All that remained was living the life they'd fought so hard to build. And Warren intended to make every day count. October arrived with brilliant fall colors and crisp air. The wedding was planned for October 15th, a small ceremony with just close friends and family. Helen flew in from California. Patricia and Jennifer were invited, along with Warren's key business associates and Brianna's closest friends from the social work agency. But the most important guests were Tessa and Corey. Warren and Brianna had asked them to be part of the ceremony. Tessa would be the flower girl, though at 9 she considered herself too old for such titles and preferred junior bridesmaid. Corey would be the ring bearer. The night before the wedding, Warren couldn't sleep. He stood at his bedroom window looking out at the city lights, thinking about how different his life looked now compared to a year ago. A year ago he'd been alone. Wealthy but empty. Successful but lonely. He'd convinced himself he was content, that he didn't need anyone or anything beyond his work. Then 2 children had stumbled into his life, terrified and desperate, and everything changed. There was a soft knock on his door. "Dad? Are you awake?" Warren turned to see Tessa standing in the hallway, clutching her stuffed bear. "I am. Can't sleep either?" She shook her head and came into the room. Warren sat on his bed and Tessa climbed up beside him. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" "I'm excited about the wedding. But I'm also thinking about Grandma. I wish she could be here to see this. To see how happy we are." Warren put his arm around her. "I think she can see it. Wherever she is, I think she knows you're safe and loved. Do you think she'd like Brianna?" "I think she'd love Brianna. And I think she'd be grateful that you found a family that loves you so much." Tessa leaned against him. "Dad, can I tell you something?" "Always. That night you found us in the alley, I was so scared. Not just of you but of everything. Of what would happen to us, of being separated from Corey, of being alone forever. I didn't think anything good could come from how bad things were. And now I know that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best things. Because if Grandma hadn't died, if we hadn't been in that alley, if you hadn't found us, we wouldn't have this family. Is that bad to think?" Warren hugged her tighter. "No, it's not bad. It's true. Sometimes life breaks apart so it can come back together better than before. That doesn't mean we're glad for the hard parts. But we can be grateful for where they led us. I'm grateful for you. And for Brianna. And for this family. I'm grateful for you too. You and Corey, you saved me just as much as I saved you." They sat together in comfortable silence, both lost in their own thoughts. Finally Tessa yawned. "You should get some sleep," Warren said. "Big day tomorrow. Will you tuck me in?" "Of course." Warren walked her back to her room and tucked the blankets around her. He kissed her forehead, marveling at how natural these gestures had become. "Good night, sweetheart. I love you. Love you too, Dad. Thank you for finding us. Thank you for trusting me." The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. The ceremony was held in the botanical gardens where Warren had proposed, among the roses and autumn flowers. Brianna wore a simple white dress that made her look radiant. Tessa wore a deep green dress that complemented her coloring perfectly. Corey wore a miniature suit and took his ring-bearer duties very seriously. As Warren stood at the altar watching Brianna walk down the aisle, he felt overwhelmed with emotion. This woman, this incredible, strong, compassionate woman, was choosing to build a life with him. Choosing to be a mother to his children. Choosing their family. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. When it came time for vows, Warren spoke from his heart. Brianna, you walked into my life when I most needed you, though I didn't know it at the time. You showed me what it means to truly care for others, to fight for what's right, to open your heart even when it's scary. You've made me a better man and a better father. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of your love. I promise to support your dreams, to be your partner in everything, and to love you more each day than the day before. Brianna's vows were equally moving. Warren, when I met you, I saw a man who had everything but felt he had nothing. And I watched as 2 children unlocked your heart and showed you what truly matters. You've become the father Tessa and Corey needed and the partner I've been waiting for. I promise to stand beside you through every challenge. I promise to love your children as my own. I promise to build this family with you, one day at a time, with patience and hope and endless love. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. After the ceremony, they had a small reception in a nearby venue. Tessa and Corey gave a toast that had everyone laughing and crying simultaneously. When we first met Dad, Tessa began, reading from a prepared speech, we were scared and cold and didn't know if anyone would help us. But Dad saw us when other people walked by. He stopped when he could have kept going. He opened his heart when it would have been easier to stay closed. And now we have a real family with a dad and a mom who love us and each other. Corey took over. Mom Brianna fought for us before she even loved us. She made sure we stayed safe and got the family we needed. Now she's officially our mom and that's the best thing ever. We love you both so much. Warren and Brianna hugged both children as the guests applauded. Helen was wiping tears from her eyes. Patricia and Jennifer looked proud. Everyone present understood they were witnessing something special. The reception continued with dinner, dancing, and celebration. Warren danced with Brianna, then with Tessa, then with Helen. Corey showed off his dance moves, making everyone laugh. It was perfect, exactly what Warren had hoped for. As the evening wound down, Warren found himself standing with Brianna, watching Tessa and Corey play with some of the other children at the reception. Mrs. Bishop, Warren said, testing out the name. How does it feel? Perfect. Everything feels perfect. We did it. We built a family. We did. They stood together, 2 people who'd found each other through the most unlikely circumstances, now bound together by love and commitment and a shared determination to give 2 children the life they deserved. After the reception, they all went home to the penthouse that was now officially their family home. Warren and Brianna had decided not to take a honeymoon trip right away. They wanted to stay home, to settle into their new family dynamics, to savor these first days as a complete family. That night, after Tessa and Corey were asleep, Warren and Brianna sat on their balcony, looking out at the city. Do you ever think about that night? Brianna asked. Christmas Eve when you found them? All the time. I think about what would have happened if I'd taken a different route home. If I'd been too focused on my phone to hear them crying. If I'd decided their problems weren't my business. But you didn't. You stopped. You helped. You changed 3 lives that night, including your own. Warren turned to face her. 4 lives. Because without Tessa and Corey, I never would have met you. True. We have them to thank for bringing us together. I have them to thank for everything. They taught me how to love, how to be vulnerable, how to open my heart to possibilities I'd given up on. They made me believe in family again. Brianna took his hand. And now we get to give them the childhood they deserve. Stability, love, opportunities. Everything their grandmother wanted for them but couldn't provide alone. We're going to give them the world. We already have. They sat in comfortable silence, both thinking about the journey that had brought them here. From a snowy alley to a wedding celebration. From fear and loneliness to love and belonging. From broken pieces to a whole, beautiful family. Inside, Tessa and Corey slept soundly, their nightmares finally banished by the security of knowing they were home. Really home, with parents who loved them and would never let them go. Warren thought about his own childhood, his time in foster care, his years of isolation. All of it had led him to that alley on Christmas Eve. All of it had prepared him to be exactly what Tessa and Corey needed. Maybe that's how healing works, Warren thought. You survive your own pain so you can help someone else survive theirs. You carry your scars so when you meet others who are broken, you know exactly how to help them heal. His children were healing. He was healing. They were all healing together, building something new and strong from the fragments of their pasts. "What are you thinking about?" Brianna asked. "Miracles. How sometimes they look like tragedy at first. How the worst night of Tessa and Corey's lives led to the best thing that ever happened to all of us. It was a miracle. All of it. You finding them trusting you, us falling in love. Against all odds we became a family." Warren pulled her close. "I'm going to make sure they never doubt their place in this family. I'm going to show up every single day and prove that they're loved and wanted and safe. We both will. That's what parents do." As they went inside and prepared for bed, Warren checked on the children one more time. He stood in each of their doorways watching them sleep, making silent promises. To always protect them. To always support them. To always be the father they deserved. And more than that, to show them every day that family isn't just about blood or legal papers. It's about choice. It's about commitment. It's about loving someone so much that their happiness becomes more important than your own. That's what Warren had learned from a little girl who'd begged him not to hurt them. That's what he would teach his children as they grew. That love is a choice you make every single day, and the right choice is always to show up, to care, to fight for the people who matter. 1 year later, on Christmas Eve, Warren and Brianna sat in their living room with Tessa and Corey. The tree was decorated just as haphazardly as that first one Warren and the kids had done together, but it was beautiful in its imperfection. "Dad," Corey asked, "do you remember last year? When you found us?" "I remember everything about that night. I was so cold," Corey said, "and so scared. I thought nobody was ever going to help us. But Dad did help us," Tessa added. "He saved us." Warren shook his head. "You know what? I think you saved me. Before I met you two, I was just going through the motions of life. I had everything I thought I wanted, but I was empty. You showed me what actually matters. You gave me purpose and love and a real family. So really we saved each other." Brianna smiled. "That's what families do. We save each other over and over, in big ways and small ways, every single day." They sat together, warm and safe, watching the snow fall outside. It was just like that night a year ago, but everything was different now. Then the snow had been dangerous, frightening. Now it was beautiful, peaceful. Because they weren't alone anymore. None of them were. They had each other, and that made all the difference. Tessa leaned against Warren's shoulder. "Dad, do you think other people get miracles like we did?" "I think miracles happen every day. Sometimes they're big and obvious. Sometimes they're small and quiet. But they're always there if we look for them." "What was our miracle?" Corey asked. Warren looked around at his family, at Brianna sitting beside him, at Tessa and Corey snuggled close. At the life they'd built together from the wreckage of their separate pasts. "Our miracle," he said, "was finding each other, and choosing every day to be a family." And that, Warren knew, was the truth. Against all odds, through all the challenges and obstacles and threats, they'd built something real and lasting. They'd created a family based not on blood or obligation but on choice and love. It was the best miracle Warren could have asked for. Better than wealth or success or anything else he'd achieved in his life. Because this miracle had a name. It had laughter and tears and messy bedrooms and homework struggles and family dinners and bedtime stories. This miracle was called home. And Warren Bishop, once a lonely millionaire who'd thought he had everything, now knew he'd had nothing before. But now he had everything that truly mattered. He had family. He had love. He had purpose. He had home. And on this Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year after a little girl's desperate plea in a snowy alley, Warren held his family close and gave thanks for the miracle that had saved them all.